Hello, this is Brian. I'm going to make this a part 2 of my Big Pines adventure today. Make this a part 2. Well, my first video was parked by the little picnic area. So, started driving down Big Pines Highway. Then, you know what? I remembered. Cedar Canyon. Cedar Canyon Trail is actually right near that picnic area, and I believe I found the entrance to that use trail that goes down Cedar Canyon right near where this power line area is. So this is actually part of Cedar Canyon. I did a hiking series to a very random peak, very random peak from this canyon, but it was further along by a big turnout underneath some black oak trees. Oh, I got some sequoias over here. Some little giant sequoia trees. Oh, look at this one. Split off into two. That one might have too, but it could be two separate trees. It's hard to tell sometimes. Yeah, I got some giant sequoias over here. But this canyon, there's actually a use trail. I don't think it's an official Forest Service trail. I don't see any information about it. But it leads through the bottom of the canyon. And I mean, the first time I was here in Cedar Canyon, I basically went over, did an off-trail hike over a hill and down the hill to the canyon bottom, and that was roughly about 6,000 feet in elevation at the bottom. I'm quite a bit higher here, but just wanted to see other parts of this canyon and see what other cool things I could find here. Maybe just keep going until the snow gets too icy. There's definitely spots of ice here, as we're still very early in the spring. But the warm weather we're getting now, it won't be very long. So we got our Jeffrey pines here, of course. No surprise here. So I want to see if this is actually part of the trail, because there's actually a trail. I mean, if you remember watching that video, there was a trail at the bottom that keeps leading off downhill, eventually leading out. I forget what the name of the Forest Service road is. There's another road. It intersects a road well below the 6,000 foot mark. So this looks like this will be more of an upside down hike where I have to climb back uphill on the way back. But I don't know if I'm going to go super far, but I definitely want to see more of this canyon, because parts of it I saw were very lush. You saw that video. There are really tall conifers down there. Wow, this is amazing, beautiful down here too. Some western chokecherry over here, some coffee berry. Yeah, coffee berry goes partially deciduous down here. Some areas coffee berry can be almost completely evergreen or completely evergreen, and then in higher locations they could be semi-deciduous. I've yet to do a spotlight on that one. Every now and then I do have a little trouble telling the subspecies apart, because there are at least 3, maybe more subspecies that grow here in Southern California. And today is Sunday, March 27th, and this is the little trail that I found at the bottom on my Cedar Canyon to Peak 6703 video. I think it was in the second or the third clip. I forget which one, but this trail will actually lead over towards where I went where I followed it for a short distance, and then I broke off and then started doing a cross-country gully scramble. Some old foundations here. Maybe an old resort or an old cabin. But yeah, we're starting to get deeper into the canyon a little bit. It's a very gentle slope here. Some nice sizable canyon live oaks over there. We're probably about like 6,700 feet, 6,650, roughly about that. But we're checking out what's going on over here. It's just beautiful. Now that the canyon's starting to narrow and the exposure's starting to change to a little bit shadier, I would not be surprised to start seeing the trees get larger very soon. It's already getting moisture. We're starting to get more white fir popping in and incense cedar. Oh, look at this canyon live oak. This thing is gnarly. Wow. I think it was probably misshapen from a fallen pine snag or something, but beautiful, beautiful canyon live oak. That trees are getting much larger now. Some of these could be ponderosas too. And I've been, I always went by vanilla Jeffrey. No vanilla ponderosa, prickly ponderosa and gentle Jeffrey, but I've been reading up on, that idea, and that might not always be true. Southern California has a really eminent botanist named Tom Chester, and he, discusses that ponderosas can give off a vanilla smell. Maybe not nearly as intense as the sweetness coming out of a Jeffrey pine, and that Jeffrey pine cones can feel prickly to the touch as well, especially when they're not open. A trick I heard was to look under the cone scales. If the cone scales are roughly and we're looking at relatively fresh cones, not the old gray cones that have disintegrated, well, not disintegrated, but lost their color, their colorful texture. We're looking at relatively recently opened cones, and if the cone scale is about the same color on top and bottom, it's a Jeffrey pine. If the cone scales are markedly darker underneath them, then you got a ponderosa. So I've been trying to pay attention to that, keep an eye on that kind of stuff to keep me clued in. So yeah, this is starting to get lusher down here. And yeah, ponderosa cones are generally significantly smaller than Jeffrey pine cones, but that's not always a foolproof 100% diagnosis either. I mean, if the cones are huge, I'm not talking about coulter pine huge, obviously, but if the cones are really large, and they're not coulter pines, obviously, then you can pretty much rest assured that you got Jeffrey pine. There's a lot of variability in our trees here. Another way he discusses is if you look with the sun behind you and you look at the trees, that Jeffrey pines have a little more grayish hue in their needles, and ponderosas typically have that really dark green, or that medium to dark greenish color, more indicative. So the sun's got, they recommend having the sun behind you to have that be helpful to you. There's another cement foundation or something over here. So maybe people had cabins here way back in the day. So you want to This is a beautiful canyon. Haven't really got to where the sugar pines are yet. I mean, I see maybe a couple of them over that way. But I know on some of the hillsides in this canyon are covered in tall sugar pines. Yeah, where there's a water feature or something. Interesting. But yeah, you can tell the trees are getting much taller. Getting closer to the 130, 140 feet range now. There are these beautiful canyon live oaks. Wow. Gorgeous over here. I think if you go up this slope here, it might lead you towards Table Mountain. One of these hills here will lead you towards the Table Mountain campground. I haven't tried that yet, but that would probably make an interesting hike. The actual summit of Table Mountain is supposed to be off limits to the public, I believe. I know insanely dedicated peak baggers, they're gonna go for it anyways. You know, they're gonna do what they're gonna do. Alright, let's see. I was thinking the canyon was gonna go this way, but this is a tributary over here, I think. It's much larger coniferous growth in there. Yeah, the trees get much thicker and denser over there. Now we got these beautiful coffee berries here. Frangula californica. I think this is subspecies californica. I think could be tomentella. I would expect tomentella to be more likely over here in the mountains. I actually have seedling coffee berries at home. Really not that hard to grow from seed. You soak them for a couple days. You collect them in the fall. You soak them for a couple days. You scrape off the flesh, and you put the seed pits in water, and you soak them for a couple days. Make sure the water doesn't get gnarly. You soak them for a couple days, and then you put them in the refrigerator for a couple months. Stratify the seeds, but check on them periodically to make sure they're not sprouting. As soon as you see sprouts, plant them. And as soon as I saw a couple sprouts on them, I put them in soil. Of course, where I live is low elevation, so you don't have to worry about frost causing a lot of issue. So yeah, that was just a tributary over there. There's some really lush trees over there. This is going to be a pretty sweaty climb back out. This is going to be all uphill. But it's worth it because I just want to get down here. But yeah, the coffee berries, and now mine are a couple inches tall already. I believe they're subspecies californica. Like the elevation I got them was about 4,900 feet above sea level, where I got the seeds. Yeah, they're not that hard to germinate. Now, whether they keep growing for me, that's a different story. Hopefully, because coffee berries are incredibly beautiful shrubs, and I haven't done a spotlight on them yet because, well, just haven't. Would like to. Definitely like to do one of those. Alright. Yeah, now we're getting into the lush part of the canyon now. So we're getting into where, even though it's not really extremely dense, but it is quite lush. On this side, it's much denser. Gorgeous down here. So I definitely wanted to come back here to Cedar Canyon to check it out. And now we're starting to get into white alders now. Got some white alders right here. Huh, look at that. Somebody built a little ramp to walk over the log. That's pretty cool. So there must be some occasional trail maintenance on this. There's a really nice Jeffrey pine right here. Wow. Time for some iciness. And like I said, I did not bring micro spikes today. But so far, snow has not been a big issue down here. So actually, I'm walking on the less traveled portion of it because I thought the place where people's footsteps were sometimes actually makes it icier. Beautiful canyon over here. See, this is the drier side here. Trees are a lot more spaced apart. These definitely got that grayish color, so I'm going by the assumption these are Jeffreys over here. Gotta be Jeffrey pines. Yeah, we got white alders down here. This is a very nice canyon. We got black oak, beautiful young white fir saplings. Look up there. Beautiful. There's a pretty big sugar pine around here too. I just saw. Here's a decent sized one here, but it's... Oh, here's a pretty decent sized one right here. That's a pretty decent sugar pine. Taller than I usually see them here in the Angeles. And you can see your Cedar Canyon Creek is trickling. Normally it'd probably be a lot more of a flow here, but this is one. I wouldn't say the driest rainy season we've ever had, but it's not that far away. We've got little chipmunks running across the logs. It's nice to hear water flowing. It's always a refreshing sound. But yeah, it's so beautiful over here. I knew I was going to come back to this canyon, even if it wasn't to climb a peak. Honestly, I just haven't been as focused on climbing peaks as I was like in 2019 and beforehand, when I was just about every single outing involved climbing a peak. See, this is what I'm doing, the exact opposite. I'm going down and then going up at the end. But I definitely have to explore more of this canyon. This would be a really nice place to hike in the summer. It's very, very warm out today. It's already quite warm out right now. It's probably about 10:30 in the morning. I did not get out of the house till a few minutes after 9 a.m. I slept in very nicely. So I'm so used to getting up around 3:30 in the morning to go to work. I used to go in at 6, but now I start my work day at 4. Thankfully, I live close to work. But here are the male catkins of white alder. These things will start opening up usually late winter, way before the new leaves come out. But this is what the male catkins look like. These are the ones that pollinate what become these. Little cone-like fruits. I always loved white alders. It's one of the first trees I learned about as a kid. And growing up in San Diego, they planted them in San Diego, and they were native in San Diego County too, of course. I used to see them, hang out under them, and I admired their little cone-like things, making me think about pine cones. They look like cones, they really do. They kind of look like honey dippers. But yeah, all of a sudden now it's like sugar pine all over the place now. Oh wow. Yeah, this is the one that wasn't doing so well. Still very picturesque tree. Of course, on this side, a lot sparser, but there's still some pretty tall stuff. Very much in love with this area. And some of these white alders, a lot of these white alders look like newer growth, younger trees. Probably a lot younger than I am. Probably that were scoured out by flood. But do see some, here's an older one right here. You can see that kind of pinkish hue. Those are all the male catkins, like that flower inflorescence I just showed you. That pinkish hue is the flowers. White alders, like I said, usually flower way before they leaf out in spring. So a lot of times they'll start opening up in late winter. and then the leaves will probably... I saw the leaf buds already starting to swell, which isn't surprising considering how warm winter was. So things are going to be budding out earlier. I mean, along the Comb, along the 15, going up the Comb Pass, I already started noticing chaparral whitethorn. So Ceanothus leucodermis is already starting to bloom below 3,000 feet, and that's a plant I cannot wait to do a spotlight on.